Welcome to the Hooked Pod with Chunk.
And I am the Chippy. And today we have a stalwart of the fishing industry down here in Albany, Western Australia, Dave Palfrey. Dave's been fishing since 1979. Good afternoon, Dave. How are you?
Good afternoon.
I think you've nearly done it all, Dave. You're still fishing today. We'd like to know the story of how you got into fishing, what you did in your early years, and what you've been doing all this time, which is like 46 years in the fishing game. Tell us about your younger days and how did you get into fishing?
All right, how I got into fishing is that the government advertised for fishing for fishermen in the South Coast estuary. And I think they advertised for 18 positions, and I was lucky enough to get one of the licences.
So that was like a ballot, was it?
Yes, I think so at the time. And 18 licences got it. You had an interview process, of course, and you paid $4, would you believe?
Wow.
and that gave us access to a broad range of fisheries, not like they are today where they're all managed individual fisheries.
Yeah. That's right.
We could go from to inshore fisheries, to sharking, to tuna, to sardines, all for $4.
Just covered the whole lot. Wow.
You obviously had to go and buy a boat and you had to get your coxswain to go fishing or something like that, or could you just jump in a boat back then?
No. My stepfather was a fisherman, and I went through the processes of spending time with him and during my schooling days, and
getting hours up, things like that.
Basically, the logbook, and the local harbour master set for the exams.
Oh, right.
And I was fortunate enough that Tom Millage was the harbour master at the time, and he lived below us.
Oh, wow.
And he saw me on boats all the time, and he said to us, "Set for this test. If you pass the theory and go for a run with us in the boat, you're done."
Yeah, so you had all the right contacts.
And then
right
on
at
top
your
of
fingertips,
that, and then on top of your marine engine driver certificate and your radio operator's ticket and your first aid, which weren't too hard to get in those days.
No.
And
were you passionate about fishing back then, like to get into it just like that? Did you do a lot in your younger days of like recreational fishing? And
no, in those days we had a lot of neighbours, mates. We were Kennedys and Westerbergs. They were around us, and we often used to go down the town jetty and catch King George White and flog them to the neighbours before we go to school. And
yeah, as a lot of kids do when they're entrepreneurial, when they're young.
Selling fish as a kid.
And in those days, there was the meatworks down on the foreshore too. We used to, on a Saturday afternoon, go down with a net with no licence when we were kids and the school of yellow-eyed mullet.
Yeah.
And drag them in and filter them up and sell them.
Wow. So you started young.
You started just as a kid. So then I went to university and worked for the government until about 24, 25 and realised, or 20, probably 6 probably, and realised that I'm not going to spend my future here.
Yep.
And we're lucky to get one of these licenses, so that's the start of the story.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
They don't give them away anymore for $4.
No.
Like you said, it's all individual now. It's not combined like it was back then, and it's all very well regulated. What did you do first in the way of fishing, or did you just do a combination during the year of different species and that?
In fact, I started up with an old wooden plywood dinghy, about 11 foot, with no outboard motor, and we used to row our nets out, because I used to live at Little Grove, and we used to just roam off the shore.
You're joking.
Yeah.
What was that for? What were you catching out of that?
We had mullet and flathead and herring,
Wow.
and cobbler, leather jackets. Yeah, no, it was a great little fishing.
Princess Royal Harbour.
Just in front of my doorstep where I used to live. I was walk across the road and run the nets out.
Yeah, it would have been good fun.
Yeah, it was. It was more of a fun than anything. And I can remember when I resigned from Telstra, everybody said, "You're mad."
Yeah.
You are mad.
Was it telecom back then?
It was. Well, I started with the Postmaster General's Department, and then it was split to Australian Postal Commission and Telstra.
Yep.
And we went to the Telstra side, and
you could see money in the fishing. Is that what made you do it?
I didn't have that type of. I didn't really think too much. It was just spontaneous decisions you make when you're young.
Yeah.
With plenty of brawn and not too much thought process.
Yeah.
That's how it started. You know?
Well, you knew there were fish out there, didn't you?
Well, we used to do it after school and before school when we were kids, and so it's just a part of our DNA.
And when they're getting rid of licences that cheap, pretty hard to resist, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was $4 a lot of money back then?
No, it didn't. It was sort
pocket
of
money.
It was sort of the anxiety of if you were the one who got one, basically.
Yeah.
You know,
Had to make it work.
Yeah, and it wasn't hard.
Yeah,
it wasn't hard. It was it wasn't hard those days because we had no major overheads. Not like today where
Yeah.
where your gear and your vessels and your licence fees.
And your boats have to be surveyed and all that sort of thing.
And up to standard. You know, we had an old plank
Jumped on board and away
jumped
you
on
went.
board with a bucket. And if we got the net set and got back again without sinking, we were lucky, we thought.
And what did you do with your fish back in those days? Were you able to just sell it locally, or did it have to go to Perth?
It was great. They had there was the railways in those days, and they had a carriage at the end of the train, which would drop them down there any time of the day into the cool room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those go to Perth. Those go to Perth 5 days a week in those days too.
On a train?
Yeah, on a train. Yeah.
Wow.
That easy.
Yeah, it was that easy, yeah. And the freight in those days was 60 cents or 80 cents a bin, you know.
Yeah.
And the
How big was a bin? Like a ton type thing? Litres?
Some of it, no, 200 or 300 kilos at the most.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But and the containers weren't very hygienic in those days. There was a sugar bag on top of an old banana crate or
Times have changed a fair bit.
yeah.
So what was your most sort of memorable fishing? Earlier I talked to you about tuna fishing and shark fishing, and we had Peter Westerberg on earlier, and he said that his first job fishing was with you.
That's correct, yeah. No, but before Pete's time, we used to after been fishing in the estuary for 12 or so months, the whaling station was still going. I used to have an old Champ ute. It's a short wheelbase Land Rover, similar type of thing. And there's a little beach on the southern side of the whaling station, and it's a big rock where to drag the whales up. And behind each whale was there's always a school of herring or skippy or something. And there was we used to have a seine net and shoot around behind the whales as they've been pulled onto the flensing deck.
Wow.
And those days, the lobster craybait market was huge because there's no imported stuff in those days.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they were using this
Herring?
these herring and bait from behind the whales for lobster bait. We made a lot of money.
Yeah. It
In
would have
those
been just follow the whale up and get a big net full and
27 whales, you have 27 shots. So there's a bit of competition amongst fishermen. You know, where we made a few enemies amongst ourselves with the rivalry. But
So there was obviously a few boats out in the
there's
water at that
a
time.
few blokes used to rock up with a keg egg on the back and drink that and go home drunk and have an argument with Palfrey. They thought that was a enjoyment for the day. You know,
that's business everywhere though, isn't it? There's cowboys and professionals. Doesn't matter what you're doing.
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because that area out in front of the whaling station, I mean, it's a bit of a bay there, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, you would have been fighting each other.
Oh yeah, there's a fair amount of competition amongst us, but we all survived.
And what was it like? I've never heard too many stories about the whaling because it finished, back in the early 80s or
Yeah,
late?
that's right,
Yeah. So what happened when they used to bring a whale up there and they drag them up onto the decks there? There's a lot of sharks and things like that.
Yeah, there's
Did you have to watch out in your little wooden boats for
Yeah.
things like that?
No,
They would have been bigger than your boat.
No, by this time we'd progressed to an aluminium dinghies.
Yeah, right.
And so we had got a little bit more mobile. But there were sharks there, but we never had no close encounter with them. We could see them, but we never had. We get teeth marks in the net. I think they were pretty full with whale blabber.
They had a pretty good food source, eh?
Yeah.
It must have been a fascinating time back in Albany back in those days when all that was happening. Was there many people in Albany against the whaling, like back in that time? I mean, it was getting towards the end of whaling and there'd been a lot of controversy around the world about stopping whaling. In the Albany region, like yourself and fishermen and everyone living here, was there much controversy about the whaling or stopping it?
We didn't really think too much of it because there's two big.
There's another industry, I suppose.
There's two big industries in Albany. It was the meat works and the whaling, and they both put a fair amount of stench out. And it drives, Marine Drive here now on a strong sou'wester with the meat works going and the whaling station go, there's a big red stream in the water and then the smell in the air.
Yeah,
And
right.
I think it was Frank Crane from the Labor Party that come to Albany and banned whaling like that overnight, basically. It sort of happened within 12 months. That was the end of the story. He came in and said, that's it.
Yep.
How many jobs did that can?
Oh, heaps of jobs. I got no idea, but you work it out. The metro, it's all our processing's
Yeah.
gone now. We had hunt scanning, which did
Salmon canning, was it?
They did everything from tuna to herring and they bought a lot of sardines and a lot of small fish off the local fishermen as well. We get bulk quantities. Then we'd hunt, we'd Borthwicks as they were in those days, the meatworks and the whaling station. Three industries that aren't green acceptable, but pretty good industries.
Yeah.
And it was just such a disappointment that they aren't there today, I reckon.
So you got out of that fishing, and what was next?
We applied to the government. We got some noxious trade blocks of lands. My stepfather and I, we sort of built a factory, and after a few years, I went out by myself and he went by himself. And we started, by that time, the sharking and the tuning were quite a big industry, and I was doing a bit of that. And then I really got into the processing. I had the processing factory for about 8-10 years.
So everyone used to bring the fish to you?
Yeah, I had a group of fishermen that were very loyal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they had keys to the factory, and they helped themselves to the weights, and
Yep.
I paid them by their weights. And it was a good.
Who was doing all the processing? Dave?
Well, we had a chap, Paul Downey. I always remember Paul. He was a great guy. He was my foreman.
Yep.
Because I was still fishing as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Paul used to sort of run the shore bay side, and I used to go down my old boat and
Bring in a load.
bring a load in and fill the freezer. Yeah, but in those days there was no quotas, and the idea was just to fill the freezers each day and go home to bed. And
So you used to fillet all the fish there, like sharks and...
no, we didn't do much fillet. We did a small amount of fillet. Paul used to do that, and I used to do a bit myself.
So mainly the processing was take the fish off the fishermen and then sell them onwards.
Freeze them, yep.
Yep.
And speculate with fish too. We used to buy a lot of brim when the brim are running.
Yep.
And have no market for them, freeze them and wait to the market.
So you were doing a lot of like bait, herring for bait and things like that?
And there was a lot of food fish.
Yep.
Food fish. Brim.
Sold a lot around Albany?
Sold a lot around Albany. A lot
Yep.
of the locals used to come to us. No, it's good. It was a good time, but then the industry changed down the track when they brought in quotas and.
Yeah, you would have seen a lot of changes during your years, and especially in the last 45 years. That's a lot of time.
Well, I've been out of the factory now for 30 odd years, which I think is the best thing I ever done. I think it's just such a. I think there was up to 60 odd vessels before quotas.
Wow.
And today there's down to 2 or 3, and you couldn't get the source,
And did you go pilchard fishing?
Oh yes, very much. I had Pete Wester before he started off. He was a bit sharking in there, and then pilchering. Yeah, we caught a lot. We were one of the original pilchard boats.
Yeah.
Because they used to catch them off the wharf in those days, and then there was about 5 or 6 boats got together. In fact, we didn't use their power blocks. We used to pull them by hand in those nets in those days. Yeah, but no, it was a good little fishery we started.
So you use the same boats for shark and pilchard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've obviously kept licences all these years, and you're still fishing today?
Yeah, I'm semi fishing it today at the moment.
I thought you were going to say semi-retired there for a minute.
No, just part-time.
I don't think you're semi-retired. I see you every day, and you're walking back and forth every day, still working.
No, I'm just doing it.
You obviously...
I love it. I love what I'm doing now. It's a good interest. The big thing is why I like it so much is that I'm not forced to go fishing, but I'm still driven because I love the... And I just love the water, and I love the thrill of catching fish.
Yeah, well, you can't really beat Albany for that. I mean, there's plenty of fish out there, and there's plenty of water around, and we've got the best of both worlds really down here.
Such good scenery out there too, the coastline we have, yeah.
And the best time of the day too.
Well, you're one of the hardest workers I've ever met, Dave.
Oh, thanks. Shane.
You get out of the... You tell me you get up or get in the boat at 5 in the morning, you're having a coffee by about 7, and then you're going to work in the... next door in your business there. How did you get into the property and the Dolphin Lodge?
Oh, well, it was what happened is that I sold the factory, and I thought I'll just continue with me fishing on the sideline and selling the factory. But that only lasted 12 months. I thought, I've got to do a bit more than this.
It wasn't enough, you reckon?
Yeah, so that's what happened. I was just it was not one of those spontaneous. It's just I thought, well, this is
another impulse thing.
Yeah, that's right. It's just that gut feeling at work. And I thought, this is a nice spot. I'll see if I can get a bit of real estate. So, fortunately, my accountant and the owner of the Skyline Flats in those days, we're the same accountant, and I got him to ask him. He Ron Tredorden, his name was, and he said yes. So there I am.
Yeah.
I think we paid about $300,000 for it.
That was a few years ago, obviously.
But like anything, it's respective of the times, isn't it?
No. And I was told by my peers that I'd paid top end of the market, so that really knocked the depression.
It doesn't really matter about if you can see something and you know that you can do something to it and make a go of it. I think a lot of people do pay at the top end of things, but you know yourself when you're an entrepreneur that you can do something with it and make a dollar out of it. And I think that's what makes people buy things at the top end. You can't always buy something at the bottom end, but I mean, I've done it myself, and you think, oh, that's too expensive, and then you go, oh, I reckon we can do really well here. And I mean, that's why a lot of people do that, you know. But you've obviously put a lot of work into it and a lot of expansion and.
Yeah, it's become your baby, probably. You know, it's just
And you still mix it with fishing. I mean, you're crabbing at the moment. Are you still like netting as well?
No. I'm just we're doing our day.
Yeah. And it's only like seasonal as well.
Yeah, we do. It's probably 8 or 9 months a year we do it. It's only during the when the crabs spawn.
Yep.
And just to the change of season, it's just like a bit of an exercise. People ride their bikes each morning. We get up and go out and pull our pots.
Yeah, that's true.
As long as the weather's all right.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Was there a point in time you thought, "What am I doing? Having such a big change?"
It's interesting to say that when I bought my first boat, Rocky, and my first shark boat.
What a great name.
Yeah.
Rocky. And it was Rocky, in fact, because Pete Westwood was my deck, and he goes...
it used to rock a lot, did it?
It was a narrow gutter little thing. But we were at 12 at the time. We thought we'd go. It's been a bit of a storm, so we went out and checked, and we put the gas bottle up, and we'll have a cup of tea before we go home. Yeah, but in those days, there's no occupational safety or no regulations of where you can put your gas bottles. We the gas bottle inside the cabin, and it exploded.
No.
Yes. It blew the cabin off the boat. Pete jumped in the water, and I ended up in hospital.
Were you in the cabin?
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I thought, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
We're around to tell the story anyway.
Were you far off coast?
No, we're anchored beyond the island.
Oh, you.
yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah.
What about some interesting stories apart from that one out on the water? What other things have happened to you over 45 years?
One of the interesting was when Peter again was with Decker, we got a big white pointer. And we got off the back of Eclipse in the net one morning. And it was that big, we sort of tied its tail up beside the gunwale and started going back to shore. It was about 8 or 9 kilometres off the coast. And we got back to the island, and the whaling station was still going. And I said to Pete, well, we have to get a flensing knife and get you over the side and cut the head off so we can get the jaws out. Pete was quite observant in those days, would you believe? He agreed to do it. And so we went and got a knife. And we sent Pete over the side with a lung to cut his head off.
A white pointer.
So anyway, he did it. And then we thought we'd pull onto the deck of the boat to cart his jaws out. And Pete and I could not get his head over the side. So we decided to tie a rope through his jaw and take it ashore and use the ute to pull onto the beach.
Wow. They're a big fish, aren't they?
Big fish.
And what about in your netting days? Anything interesting in the net?
No. Probably one of the most interesting cases I had was 8 or 10 years ago. There was a big drug bust in Albany. And the blokes had hired, the blokes were staying at the lodge, would you believe? And my son-in-law was a federal cop. So they preempted to
Good place to stay.
You had a bit of intel.
But anyway, the story goes that anyway they come and hide the boat, and they went and got the drugs off this ship that was going past, and they planted it at Quarrenup.
Oh, wow.
And this time I were fishing at Quarrenup. Only time it's ever had in my life that 2 fisheries inspectors come out in the afternoon with me to see what I do. Yeah. But it was interesting getting back to the story. The guys who were some South American Latin country, and he was about my age, and he looked a really sophisticated, educated person, not what I would pick as a druggie. And from my office, I can see out, but they can't see in. And I looked, I said, your days are numbered, sir. hard day. And then Sunday morning they come down, and he had his mates camping at the Panorama Caravan Park at Big Grove.
Yeah.
And one Sunday morning I got to work, and all these blokes were laid in the car park with coppers behind. Yeah, but no. Yeah.
Chunk, got any more questions, mate?
Questions? No. It's interesting. I haven't really known you ever.
Haven't you? So what's your surname?
Lutley. You actually did my skipper's ticket.
Oh, I did, yeah.
Once a long time ago.
Oh, you did that as well?
Yeah.
What happened is I when they first came in, I applied and I got a job there. I think I did about 7,000 skipper's tickets.
Did you really? 7,000?
But in those days, there was no practical. There was just theory. And I sat at the office there, just running through all the time, you know.
Oh.
It was just
So you didn't have to hop on a boat or anything?
And then after 12 months, you had to hop in a boat.
Yeah, I had to hop on a boat.
Yeah.
I had to hop on a boat.
But Yeah. Well, I did. Well, I never talked. Then they give me an order one day. They talked to me about insurance, and I thought, what insurance?
Not if it's theory, you don't have to worry about insurance.
That's right. But practically do. So I never know insurance, and I don't insure. I've got a hire boat there which I never insure, and they suggested I have to take out insurance and make sure the boats. And I thought, no, this is getting too hard. So I decided to give it away.
Yeah, right.
The cost.
Did you pass everyone or not?
No. It's black and white. Yeah, if you failed, you failed. Yeah.
Yeah, just tick the boxes.
Tick the boxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just had them at the trip. Yeah.
I did a whole day up in Perth, in East Fremantle. The guy down there, it was really good.
You should have come seen Dave.
He had a centre.
1 hour and we're
He
done.
had a centre console, and it was great. You take it off his jetty, you go around through, the Swan River, and then you come back and go around a few buoys and that.
Yeah.
And he tells you to. Yeah, it was
Man
really good.
overboard, all those drills.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think of fishing these days here, Dave? Is there still fish out there for people to catch? And is it just that there's not enough people catching, or, generation after you are not fishing?
I think the way the structure's changed to all these limited entry fisheries and the licensing costing has made it so difficult for a fisherman to jump from fishery to fishery.
Yep.
So there's not so much pressure on one individual fishery, and that's the big problem we have. And the costings nowadays, I feel sorry for the next generation will have the same opportunities that we had.
No, that's right.
And that's a hard part. Yeah, and people need a break to be able to get into something like this, because it is a very speculative industry.
Yeah, well, it can cost you $200,000 to get into it, just in the lower end, can't it?
How can you do that nowadays?
Yeah, that's right.
The bank wouldn't lend money to you.
Not to a fisherman, no.
No.
And you obviously still have licences now. Do you have anyone lease them or anything like that?
No, I've only got a couple of licences now. I've got 3 or 4 boat licences and a couple of limited entry fishery licences. I sold my quota to Peter, my muley quota.
So no one comes knocking on your door wanting to lease your licences or anything like that? Because
I got a phone call the other day. Someone turned up, but I just love to have them shared if I want to use them.
Yeah. But what I was getting at is that, for us to be able to get people down here to go fishing, there's obviously licences out there. There's still, you can buy them obviously, but you don't hear of many people coming down here and starting up fishing.
No.
It's all from, sort of your generation, and a lot of their children are not fishing. It's, I think, I've only been here 9 years, but I think, I thought it'd be a lot easier to get fish, but I think over the last 9 years it's gotten harder. And I don't think the weather's changed that much. I think it's still, you've still got enough days in the year to be able to go out and get fish. But, there just doesn't seem to be as much.
And it's the restrictions to go, it's like the shark fishery alone. That was a great little sideline for us in our days. But now it's a specialised fishery. And you buy the quota, there's no opportunity for the young person to go out and set a few shark nets off the beach or...
Yeah, make a few bucks.
Yeah, and that's how it used to be in those days. It was just that great little effort. You run 100 metres or 200 metres offshore somewhere close, pick up 4 or 5 gummies. In the middle of the beach here we used to do it.
Yeah.
But you're not as strong as they were to. You pick up a couple $100.
Yeah.
But nowadays that opportunity is not around for the young ones. So.
Do you see a future in the fishing down here? Or not so much?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, it's only a guess.
Well, there's less and less ground now to fish too, isn't there?
It's just interesting that, especially in the estuarine fishery, just take that for an example. Once the fishermen used to spread out along the coast. Nowadays, with the generational change, and they want to stay where the local community is.
Yeah, don't want to travel.
Don't want to travel, and we have that conflict by the concentration of there in small zones.
With your business and your fishing, you're obviously very successful, experienced in both. What's more challenging?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
The fishing side of
and
things,
they're two very different industries that you're in.
Well, the accommodation business is easy. If you buy the right accommodation, and so there's not much of a big challenge here. There's a script written there to do it. The fishing, I say, is more challenging because you're dealing with the weather, you're dealing with fellow fishermen.
Yeah.
You're dealing with seasons.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with costings, very much costings nowadays in fishing. The licensing fees and the cost of gear and repairs.
You've got to go out and find fish too.
I'll give you an example. I had to replace the bung in one of my dinghies the other day, $420. Not cheap.
Was it a gold one?
Stainless steel one. It is. But that's a cost.
Did you say a bung?
Yeah.
How big a bung was it? A metre diameter or something?
They just cut it out and weld it.
Oh, okay. They had to do the whole lot. Yeah.
But it wouldn't have been a $400 job, I thought.
Thanks, Dave. Now, we have a question at the end of our podcast. We'd like you to recommend a food dish for us, a unique food, maybe experience that you've had from your many travels. I'm sure you've done a bit of travelling.
I'm probably an Asian. I haven't been to Europe. I've been to Asia quite a few times. I reckon a Thai green curry is pretty good. Shane's fish and chips aren't bad either.
Apparently. And what about your favourite fish to eat?
King George whiting.
There you go. That's it. I think you might have had it last night, didn't you?
I did, yeah. You saw, had King George whiting.
On the grill?
Yeah.
It's so good that we've got King George Sound out here because, me being a ring-in from Perth 9 years ago, not knowing much about Albany and having King George Sound out in front of us, and we can eat King George whiting out of King George Sound.
What a marketing tool, eh?
It's pretty special.
Yeah,
So lucky.
Yeah.
It's been one of the best things for us coming down here, still getting that fish out of there.
Yeah, well, your King George whiting, would you be your main fish there, Shane, would it?
We do have a few varieties, but for Albany fish, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we get, obviously Nanagai and stuff like that, but all year round I can rely on King George whiting.
Yeah, and they're good eating.
Yeah. I mean, and actually this summer has probably been the best summer we've had for King George because usually it does, you don't get as much in the summer and the quality of the fish aren't as good. But this year I've really relied on it because of the easterlies and that when, people haven't been out hooking as much. Getting the King George whiting has been fantastic and, the quality of it's just great.
Mm.
Yeah, and this year's been really good for it, so I've been really happy. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you coming in and having a chat with us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good on you.
Thanks for joining.